These are some of my favorite foods to prep for the springtime. Once the sun comes out, I'm ready to start eating a little bit different than I did in the wintertime, and these are some things that I love to keep on hand in my refrigerator and some of my favorite freezer meals to make for the springtime. So the first thing I'm doing is roasting some potatoes and some chickpeas. I like to flavor these a little bit different. I like to use one sheet pan and then just season them in sections. These are perfect for on top of a Buddha bowl or in a burrito bowl or any other quick meal that you want to throw together. This is one of my favorite vegetables in the springtime. This is baby cauliflower, and it is so yummy. This is one of the few things that I do use oil for because it gets nice and roasty in the oven, and this is just delicious. I could eat the whole entire tray of this myself. I just like to season this a little bit with some garlic powder, salt, pepper, and you just throw it in the oven to roast. I also love roasting cherry tomatoes. They are perfect to add on top of a pasta or in a bowl, or you'll see in one of the recipes I make later what I use those roasted tomatoes for. And I'm just baking off some tofu. Tofu is so easy to throw on top of a salad. I like to sprinkle my tofu with a little bit of cornstarch and then throw it in the oven because that makes it nice and crispy. So here I'm going to be making some hemp seed ranch dressing. So you'll see everything I'm adding on the screen, but basically I just use hemp seeds as my base, and then I use all of the seasonings that would be in a ranch dressing and then just blend it together until it's nice and creamy. One of my favorite go-to veggie sides is cauliflower rice. So here I'm going to be prepping two different kinds of cauliflower rice. One is going to be like a cauliflower fried rice, stir fry. So I'm just going to be adding some frozen corn, some frozen peas, and some soy sauce. You could add some ginger. You could always stir fry this up with some cabbage and onions. So this is for the cauliflower fried rice. And then for the next one, I'm going to be doing a cilantro lime cauliflower rice. So I'm just going to be adding in some lime juice, cilantro. You could add garlic powder and salt. And then I love to just heat these up either in a pan or in the microwave and then serve it on the side of whatever I'm eating as a nice yummy vegetable side. This is one of my favorite salads for the springtime, so I like to cook up some farro and then add some arugula in the bottom of a big bowl and kind of wilt down the arugula with the warm farro. And then I like adding the roasted cherry tomatoes and some roasted corn and then some roasted chickpeas to this too. And then you top it off with any dressing that you like. I really like this goddess dressing from Trader Joe's, but you could use whatever you'd like. And then I just mix it together. So here's just some of the stuff that I like to prep. I kind of do this on rotation in the spring. I keep a cold kind of salad that I could have for lunch, and then some easy sides and easy proteins that I could just throw into a bowl and grab and go. So here are some of the meals I made. This was a nice little cauliflower green bowl. I had made my own honey mustard dressing to go on top. I have the roasted cauliflower, tofu, arugula, farro, and some roasted radishes that I threw in my air fryer. This was a burrito bowl. I have my tofu, my roasted potatoes. I have some corn, some avocado, some rice, and some salsa. And then here is that farro salad all plated up, one of my favorite lunches. So on to some freezer meal prep. So I'm going to be making a breakfast casserole. So the first thing that I'm going to need to make are some coconut bacon bits. So you just add some tamari, liquid smoke, maple syrup all into a bowl and add your coconut flakes. And then you're going to make sure that they're well coated, and then you're going to bake them in the oven until they're nice and crispy. And then I'm going to be prepping some tofu scramble. So you could pretty much make tofu scramble however you like. This is just how I make it. I crumble up the tofu, I add a bunch of seasonings, and then I stir it up in a frying pan. And then for this one, I added some frozen spinach. So now I just take a baking dish and I layer some hash brown potatoes. I add my tofu scramble on top, more potatoes, and then some vegan cheese sauce. And then you just kind of keep layering this. And then the last thing I like to add are those bacon bits. This one's a little bit unconventional, but very fun. So we're going to be making a lasagna. So it's kind of like a lasagna, but you use tater tots. If you don't like to use frozen tater tots, you could just use like roasted potatoes. But I'm starting out with some onions, and I'm going to saute those in a pan. And then I'm going to be adding some tomato paste, some Italian seasonings. We're going to be making a bit of like a creamy lentil bolognese here. I'm also going to be adding some white beans in this just for a little bit more added fiber. I'm going to be adding some tofu cream, which is just like blended up silken tofu. And you could add some nutritional yeast and garlic to that. And I'm also going to be wilting down some kale. So you could eat this on its own. You could serve it over pasta, but I really like to use the tater tots to kind of layer it. Just makes it a little bit more fun. You could also just use lasagna sheets if you want, or you could use sliced up potatoes. But I would make sure to cook and steam the potatoes first so that they're not super hard, because when you put this in the oven, you're basically just heating everything through and not like cooking it through. You could bake this one right away, or you could stick it in the freezer and you could bake it off when you want to eat it. This pesto pot pie is another one of my favorites. This just tastes so much like spring, but it's still cozy for those like cooler spring days. So I'm going to be adding some onion and celery. Essentially, I'm going to be making like a cream of celery soup here. So I'm going to be adding some flour as a thickener, and that's going to kind of make a little roux. So I don't like to use a lot of butter or oil, but you could use a little bit of water and it kind of does the same thing. And then you're just going to cook that until it's nice and thick. You could add whatever plant milk you like here. I'm going to be using some almond milk. Soft light falls on quiet sand. And then I just made a little bit of a vegan pesto, which just was some basil, hemp seeds, garlic. You can use whatever kind of pesto you like, and you just mix that in and stir it until it's nice and thick. And now I'm going to be adding some potatoes, broccoli, peas, and pearl onions. You can use whatever vegetables you like. I just like all the green and how beautiful it looks. And then I'm just going to be putting this in some baking pans and then topping it with some puff pastry. You could top it with homemade pie crust or biscuits or anything you'd like. And then you just stick these in the freezer until they're ready to go. That sunrise will always have that sunrise. Daybreak, shadows fade. You step back, I step away. Nothing's broken. pesto pasta salad is another really quick, easy grab and go lunch that I like to keep in my fridge already prepped. So you just are going to take some cooked pasta, some raw zucchini, some asparagus. So you're going to want to pre-cook your pasta for this one. You can use whatever kind of pasta you like. If you want to use plain pasta, chickpea pasta, lentil pasta, whatever. I like to add diced zucchini and some steamed asparagus to mine. You could add whatever green veggie you'd like. You could add some broccoli, cauliflower. I also like to add some diced tomatoes, some spinach. You're going to mix that all together and then you just blend up your sauce. These are the ingredients I use in my sauce. And then you just coat your pasta salad in the sauce and you could just stick that in your refrigerator and it stays good for a few days. And then my favorite spring crock pot meal is cheesy broccoli soup. So this is kind of like the Panera broccoli cheese soup. I make this on repeat and I love to make it with my sourdough little bread rolls and I just love this. So you just shove this all in your crock pot and then you blend it up and it's super easy. So I hope you guys enjoyed these videos. Tell me down below, what is your favorite recipe for springtime? Any of these recipes that have links to ebooks that you can download, I will leave in the description box down below. Thank you so much for watching. Bye guys.